Mama calls. Just wanted to jump into the video before it kicks off and just give a special thanks to the boys at Summer Thieves for allowing us to use their tune for the intro and exit to the podcast. And Movember's kicked off today, so cheers to everyone who's signed up and who's jumped behind the calls. But without further ado, let's go.
Turn on the radio.
Positive podcast here. Just sitting here with Kelly, getting to know Kelly a little bit, talk about her story and just where she's come from, things she's been through, and just a little bit about herself and what she sort of wants to bring out and project into the world with the positive vibes that a lot of us see on the daily. So do you want to just introduce yourself real quick?
I'm Kelly. I grew up on the coast, lived there most of my life, and I work as a gardener, so I'm outside in the sun all day and or the rain if it's shitty weather. So,
What school did you go to? What primary? What college?
I went to Stanmore Bay Primary School in the Hibiscus Coast, and I went to Whangaparoa College, and I left probably a few months before I was supposed to graduate, but then the year after that I went to the Ashton Warner Nanny Academy and got my qualification, and those credits rolled over and helped me complete my NCEA 3, so that was kind of a bonus as well.
When I sort of like think of Kelly back in the day in primary, like I think of real innocent little girl that used to run around with like Georgia and Charlie and stuff, and just, I don't know, you guys just seemed like little like fairies just plotting around the school and stuff. But did you face any problems at a young age or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think obviously in primary school you have that innocence before adulthood where you get all of these responsibilities or problems arising, and you're usually just like having fun all the time, and that's all you really look forward to. It's like playing around and stuff, but I definitely still feel like I had anxiety even when I was in primary school age. Like, even if I was just like, you know, if you need to go to the toilet or something on your break, like on lunch or whatever, and you go and you come back and you don't know where your friends are going to be or something like that, you know, like it seems insignificant.
Start
but when
freaking
you're
out.
You start freaking out. You're like, man, I don't know where all my friends have gone. And like looking back, it seems like something little as, but at that point, you know, it could be really overwhelming for you and make you just feel kind of like, I don't know, have just like this little anxiety attack about not being able to find your friends, or like, you know, not so much schoolwork and stuff, but in like a social setting, I think that was like.
Well, that's what it all starts, is sort of like when you're at that age trying to figure out who you are, trying to find a good group of friends and trying to just find sort of where you fit in, because as we know, there's so many different crowds of people and stuff.
Absolutely, and I think whether they intend to or not, and I think it's just like the way some kids are, even from like preschool age, kids can be real nasty, and a lot of the times they can think it's real funny as well, and then usually if you're on like the butt end of it, it's heavy, you know, and it can be like real hurtful and stuff like that. But I think that's, you'd like to think as people get older they get less nasty, but I suppose it sort of follows through to college as well for some people. So
I can remember being a bit of a little arsehole back in primary school and just always in detention and stuff like that. I can remember back in primary too, there's just no worries at all. Like you just didn't really like care about too much. You didn't have to worry about anything. Like, you know, you worried about someone taking your pencil or some shit, you know, or like taking your rubber or something like that. So.
That was my rubber, you know, or like what you're going to get from the tuck shop for lunch if you were lucky enough to get tuck shop money, you know. All of your stationery provided for you, you got all your lunch and stuff sorted for you most of the time. Like, just no responsibilities really at all.
No responsibilities at all.
Your
That's probably one of the most heartbreaking things for a girl, I reckon, is to be separated from her girl group when they're like put into groups for like sports and stuff.
Yeah, or if you're like in a group of 4 and you have to have a group of 3 and someone's got to be left out, you know, and it's like, well, like, you got to choose a buddy and there's like 3 of you and then one person gets left out and it like ruin your whole day if you were the one left out, like
Uh-huh.
go home sulky or something. Like, as an adult perspective now, I'd be like, oh, well, why don't you just go find you there's heaps of other people you can be friends with. But when you're a kid, that's not the point. Like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
these are my friends, and like I don't want to be friends with those people. It's like, you're still a child and you're still trying to figure
Mm-mm.
that sort of stuff out. And as you get older, it can still like even be hard, or like I suppose as an adult looking back, you could try and imagine how you felt if and when you were in that situation. But it's just
Yeah.
like what you would do as an adult now, you probably wouldn't do as a child. So it's sort of hard to like find
Mm-mm-mm.
that balance to be like figure out the right way to go about it, or
Yeah,
like they're still
yeah.
going to feel good.
How do you find the transition going from primary to intermediate? So going from Stanmore Bay to Whangaa College?
I think it was actually pretty well, from what I think, like remember, I feel like it was quite easy because most of my friends from
Mm,
primary school went to
yeah,
Whangaparāoa College. So I
yeah,
think
yeah.
obviously like the whole setting's different, the learning environment, like the school is so much bigger, it's quite intimidating. It's like, and you go from being in primary school the big fish in the little
Mm,
pond to being the little
yeah,
fish
yeah.
in the big pond.
Yeah, yeah. So it sort of like takes
Like,
you
you have
back
all
a
this
bit, eh?
confidence. Yeah, it like knocks you down a few notches. Like, you leave
Yeah,
primary school like you're the big kid sort of thing, and then you go in and you're like way back down here, and like any
yeah,
confidence you'd just built up being taken down a bit. And like you said, you've got
yeah.
like another thing you've got to work through to like get back up there again. So
Mm-mm. Yeah, and
pretty
I guess that,
real.
that can be pretty stressful too, eh? It can be pretty stressful because the struggles that sort of comes with college and having to like deal with the older kids and sort of like somewhat idolizing them, but at the same time you're kind of wary of them because you don't know who they are or what they get up to and stuff like that. Did you think that there was any good sort of role models in school that you sort of looked up to that sort of helped you get through, like the just made your ride a bit easier through college, I guess?
I think in the beginning I don't remember so much. Obviously, as I like there was definitely certain no one I could like in particular think of, but there'd be like,
Yeah.
the odd older kids were intimidating, or some of them could even
Mm-mm.
have that hierarchy on a high horse sort of feeling to them. But then a lot of them
Yeah.
were supportive, like if you did need help or you looked lost, like there was like quite a good balance, I suppose, of people that
Yeah.
sort of looked scary in a sense and people looked like that they would help you. And
Yeah.
but then I feel like as you get older as well and you mingle more with groups of people, you find people like, they might be a few years older than you, but you get on really well. They might not
Mm-mm.
necessarily be of like, not in that intimidating sense, but you're just creating friends of like different age groups, really. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Did you sort of experience any sort of rough times going through college?
um, I would
Like
say
any
yes.
bullying, or you could
I
have been the bully
probably, to be
yourself,
honest,
or no?
I'm not gonna sit here and say that I wasn't a bully. Like I feel like in primary school, I feel like I was bullied quite a bit, like a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I definitely felt more insecure at primary school than I
Mm.
did at um, intermediate and college. And I feel
Yeah.
like in the first few years, there was definitely like I probably was a bully to somebody of some kind, at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think everyone
like
sort of is
like
at
if I
at some
wasn't,
point, eh?
I think the more that I think about it, actually, I think I used to have like I would use it as a sense of humor, but looking back
Mm.
now, it was actually bullying. Like it's not
Yeah. Yeah.
making jokes that would come across as like, I was just trying to make a joke and like have a laugh or whatever, but it's actually picking on
Yeah.
someone. But I did,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there was definitely that, or like being part of like something that you say, like even secondhand bullying, where someone's doing something mean and you're just sort of going along with
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you're not
Just sort of laughing
necessarily
at it and just yeah.
you're
Yeah.
just not doing
Yeah.
anything to stop it. And I feel like there was a time I was actually a friend of mine at the time had told me that I apparently had stuck up for her when heaps of people were bullying her, which I don't really remember, but it obviously made
Yeah.
a huge impact on her, which was real, real cool. Um, because obviously I feel like, it's good that that stuff sticks as well, because I feel like you can do evil things and nasty things and you
Yeah.
might not remember even doing it, and it's stuck in
Yeah,
someone's
yeah.
head. Like, someone could have
Yeah.
in their head of me that in year 8 or year 7 or primary school I did something real mean to them, and I have no idea, like I'm oblivious to
Yeah.
it now, but it sticks with people, when you do
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. So just gotta like learn as you get older and to try not
Yeah,
be
well
like that
that's
or
it.
do
It's
those
like
things.
sort of like I guess the younger generation sort of just need to understand that, they are young and that they've got so much time to like go through and look back at what they've done and reevaluate and try and dissect it and understand it later on. Because it's kind of
Yeah,
like, I feel like you have to go through that sort of stuff during school and during primary and stuff to then, I guess, sort of help your way to finding who you are.
absolutely. And I think once you go back on that stuff as well, like you might think back, like I know I've thought back on things and I'm like, fuck, like that wasn't nice of me, that wasn't cool,
Mm,
or I wish I didn't do that, or something you're embarrassed of. But then
yeah,
you go through that and you give yourself the understanding that you wouldn't do that again now. You've grown as a
yeah,
person and you
yeah,
would,
yeah.
you've got to like sort of have acceptance for the things that you've done as
Mm,
well. Like, and just realize that. And then again, if you're in that situation now, you wouldn't do that, or, so
yeah,
it's all about like that growth. And like you said, you've got to, I think everyone's got stories that they'll like lie in bed before they go to sleep and they're like, oh my God, that was so embarrassing. And,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
everyone's got it as well. I think, like no one does.
And that's it. Everyone's going to go through a certain stage where something like that's happened, or a certain stage where they might be in that situation where they're laughing, or they might be in the situation where they're getting laughed at. So it's
Yeah.
just because I know definitely know for myself that during school that I used to get bullied from the older kids. So then ultimately, it sort of rubbed off on me, and I'd start picking on people as well. And it
Yeah.
was kind of hard to deal with. But at that age, it kind of feels like that's, I guess, the process. It's like the set dominance from the top of the males. Who are the year 13s. Obviously they'll pick on the year 12s. Year 12s will pick on the 11s, and so on and so forth. So it's like a big chain that ends up chain reacting through, I guess, the whole cycle of all the years. And there's bound to be someone in the year that's bullying, or there's someone in the year that's getting bullied. I think it's hard to say that everyone sort of has to go through it in a way where you don't want them to go through it, but it's just kind of like no matter what, it's going to happen because that's just how life is. There's good people and there's bad people, and it's just trying to deal with them in the moment. But if we're able to, give them, I guess, warnings and stuff in these podcasts, and just sort of, I guess, give them a heads up before getting into the college state. And if they do see someone getting bullied, maybe they'll be like, oh shit, I seen on that podcast that they were talking about bullying and that we should stand up for them. So, it's kind of one of those things where you want to break that chain reaction amongst some kids where it gives them a
Absolutely.
bit more heart to stand up for the little dude.
Absolutely. And I think it doesn't matter what age of school you're in, like you said,
Mm-mm.
it's inescapable, you could go in like all prepared and stuff like that, and it's just or like, thinking it's not going to happen to you, or you're not going to be
Mm.
the one bullied, or you're not going to be the one to bully, and you
Yeah.
just never know what's happening in school. So like unpredictable in that sense that you just don't know what you're going to come across. And I think
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people, if someone's being picked on for whatever reason, someone doesn't want to necessarily stand up because they don't want to get grouped with that person and they
Yeah.
don't want to get
Yeah.
picked on either. But I
Yeah.
think it's that whole thing, the more people that stand together against it,
Mm.
if more people go together and be like, hey, don't do that, and there's no need for it. And if you're on the other end of bullying as well, like if you, I think in this situation, if you saw someone being bullied, and if that was you being bullied, would you want someone to come and stand up
Mm.
for you, or like, would you want to stand up for yourself, or like, I don't know whether you can just walk away or just stand up for yourself, like use your voice that you don't want to be
Yeah.
spoken
Yeah.
to or treated like that. But
Yeah.
then I think there's like a scared of someone being like, if it's an older kid, that they're going to beat you up or something like that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah,
trying to find that
definitely.
balance, I suppose, of like, and tips of how you can approach that. But I always try and think, like, if that was me in that situation,
Mm,
I would want to
yeah,
be either the one that would be like, use your voice and stand up for yourself, or like if you could have someone come and help you, then that would be cool as well. So, but then
yeah,
again, when it comes down to it, it can be real scary as well, even if
yeah,
you're seeing
yeah,
that, So
yeah,
it's like a catch-22 on that one, I suppose.
yeah. It is, but all you can sort of push is the positive side and just tell them that if you do see something like this, or even if you're a younger kid and you're seeing an older kid pick on like a middle-aged kid, call out to someone, or call out to a teacher, or just call out to another bigger kid that is a good dude or something like that, and just
Yeah,
just make sure that it's it's just trying to break that curse that so much of us have sort of experienced throughout the years. And there's a lot of generational curses on a lot of things, not just school, but just how parents bring up their children. Ultimately it's however you're brought up is ultimately sometimes how your parents were brought up, kind of thing. So it's just trying to break
absolutely.
those generational curses. But definitely in school you'd want to stand up, especially if it's your mate or something. If it was your mate, you're probably more likely going to jump in. So if you see like a random little kid, just look at him and picture that person like it's one of your mates, and just jump in without hesitation, because who knows, that
Absolutely.
might that one beating up or bully session from that one older kid could be ultimately that kid's sort of like tipping point, and he might go home and might do something that we probably all don't want him to do, kind of stuff, because it's a lot of our youth at the moment that are going through the hard times and just ultimately trying to figure out how to maneuver themselves through college and through primary, the transitions, and running into these different people, these different characters, and trying to help them understand that you're going to go through some hard times, but you're also going to go through a lot of good times as well.
Like in primary school, where it may seem like, say, something real small to someone on the outside, or to your parents or to your friends or something, but to you it could be
Yeah,
something real huge. Like that could be your tipping point, that could be something real bad for you. And and if you see someone being bullied, and even if you're afraid, like you said, if you're afraid to go up by yourself, you get a group of
mm-hmm.
your mates to go up, or you go get an older kid, or you go get a teacher. But I think the worst thing you could do is to like do nothing, you know
Mm,
and it can seem like it might be something real scary for you to do, to go and stand up for someone even if you don't know them. And a lot of the
mm,
time I think people getting picked on, they don't have a lot of people around them, or they don't have a lot of support, and that can possibly be why they're getting picked on. If they feel like
yeah,
they've got
yeah,
someone backing them, oftentimes bullies can just stand down.
yeah,
And but I think, yeah, it's something that obviously causes anxiety issues and depressional
mm,
issues and stuff early on. And
yeah,
and if school obviously can have some awesome times as well, but if you are a person that doesn't have a lot of friends, or doesn't enjoy social situations, or has these horrible interactions, then it's not going to be a good time for you. It's going to be a horrible time. I
yeah,
remember I got to one point in, like, I think year 12 and 13, where I'd go to class and I'd go home on like morning tea and lunch breaks, because I just didn't enjoy like
yeah,
the
yeah,
social situation. There's like
yeah,
group, and someone would talk about you and you go to a next and stuff like that. So, like, and I mean, especially now with phones and stuff these days,
mm,
like you have Instagram, you have Facebook, you have Snapchat, you have all this stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Like even when we were at school, you'd have someone go, oh, so and so said this and so said that. And you could have
yeah,
like, you'd have texting walls or whatever, like bullying through that. And now there's so much, like, you could be like
yeah, yeah,
through text or whatever, but now there's so many different platforms to do so. So I feel like it's just made it even more of like a prevalent issue that
mm.
like you said, needs to be
And
addressed,
that's a
because
big thing too, is the whole cyberbullying, because when we were growing up, we sort of only had like texts, so we could only
yeah,
show each other texts from each other, like look at what this
yeah,
person said, and then
you
throughout
couldn't
the years,
screenshot or anything,
like throughout the
like you
years
couldn't
as we got into
screenshot
like
it.
college and stuff, that's when the pictures and stuff started coming out, and you'd be walking
Yeah,
around with like pictures of chicks, and you're like showing
yeah,
all the boys, and then the pictures get out, and then now she's feeling shamed. And now,
yeah,
because
that's
everyone's
the
got
thing.
iPhones and You know, there is all these different platforms that I could just imagine how intense the bullying on the internet would be nowadays compared to when we were a bit younger.
Yeah, and you could make like one mistake, say of like, you know, like you said, taking photos or something, and if you send that
Mm,
to the wrong person, I mean, like everyone does stuff like that, I suppose. Like in
yeah.
a sense, everyone does
Yeah, well,
similar
like, you know,
stuff.
you can't sit here and say they're like, dudes aren't out here fucking sending dick pics and shit, you know?
Yeah, exactly, you know, like, and I think, you know, even if you're younger and you thought like you could do it to get some attention and then it gets passed around in a wrong way or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
but again, like, you know, you could have a conversation with someone like sexting or something, and now it gets like
Mm-hmm.
screenshotted, it gets sent to all these people, you know, whereas like you
Yeah.
can't screenshot on the little Nokias we used to have.
Yeah,
And I
harder.
feel like it was bad enough back then, so now it's obviously going to be
Fuck
like
yeah.
way more of an issue, you know. So
Yeah. Once you actually started looking for a job and stuff that, you know, looking back at college, it didn't prepare you for what life's actually going to hit you with.
personally, I don't think school so much did. But like I know they had those star courses and stuff. I never went on one of
Mm-hmm.
those. But when I was in year 12, I think I went and got a job at KFC.
Yeah.
But
Let's
I
go.
went for that. Yeah, yeah. And that was like I think that's where I got like, you know, I'd go work, finish school and work like 4 till 10 on weekdays and stuff and work on the
Yeah.
weekends. And I think when I first started that, I was real excited, but I was real nervous, obviously, as well. And
Mm.
I think being in most people would like shun working at Macca's or Subway or KFC or anything like that. It's a shit job and you don't want to do it. But to be honest, it prepares you with like, you know, everyone's like, ooh, that's so cringe. I don't want to work at Macca's or KFC or something. And fair enough, you know, like
But
uniform shit,
it
like
is
you
what
got to
it
wear
is, eh?
headsets and stuff. Where it was more the fact of like, you know, to get some extra money or to get money, I didn't have any money at that point, but
Yeah, yeah,
to get some money and like also a bit of responsibility, you know, because you go there and you have to do, you know, your like food safety certificates, you have to have
yeah,
do a lot of stuff to learn, like, and you also learn customer service. And I think that
yeah,
is the biggest thing in any job, it doesn't matter what you do, is learning how
yeah,
to
yeah,
speak to customers. You've got people of all ages and people with all temperaments, like people that are going to be lovely and people that are going to be just straight up nut. Like I can't tell you how many evil like people I had come through getting angry at me about like fried chicken. Like you'd be so surprised, you know.
Could probably be
But like
some things in school that could probably better prepare the youth in that way. So, like, maybe have, like, you know, not just star courses, but, you know, have courses where they're actually doing the stuff to be able to get the certificates or something like that,
absolutely,
you know?
I think that would be because you know a lot of places you go to or when you go look for work when you leave school, you have to have a qualification, and it's like, well,
Yeah,
how, or you have to have work experience.
yeah.
And how
Mm,
do you get work experience if you're not getting a job, you know? So it's sort of can be a bit of a vicious cycle. But if they offered any kind of experience, you know, like those star courses, I suppose were good from what I'd heard anyway.
like, you'd
But
almost want, like,
even
kind of
just having,
like, mini sort of apprenticeships or something going on, sort of towards, like, their,
absolutely,
maybe, like, you know how we start picking our own like our own sort of subjects and stuff from, I think it's year 11, we start picking our own
mhm.
stuff. Maybe they can start putting in, you know, like little certificate classes or something, you know, like a mechanics certificate or something, just so like by the time they do get out of school, you know, they at least have year 11, 12 and 13, which is 3 years experience leading into leaving school or something like that.
Yeah, like some extra endorsements you can do as well.
Mm,
And when you're getting actual work experience, like even at work now, I've kind of thought like it would be cool to have, you know, you could have I could have someone come to work with me for the day and they could do all the work with me. We could be out in the
yeah.
gardens, you're doing lawns, you're trimming trees, you're planting plants or whatever.
Mm,
And it could be just really good experience for someone who's never done it before. And then they can go and say that they've done a day's work, like, you know, or even a week's work or whatever it is. And
yeah.
they know the idea of what needs to be done, like how to start tools and, you know, and stuff
Mm,
like that.
mm,
And that could be just even a huge step for someone. And if you've got a little bit of experience or a little bit of awareness or idea, then you could be more eligible to get a job straight away as well.
yeah,
And you'd feel
yeah,
more confident going
yeah.
into a job.
Yeah, and that's it. Because I think like a lot of that anxiety sort of comes around, the fact that you're leaving college. Your parents are sort of pressuring you and asking you what you want to do with yourself, and I guess like you said, that confidence of just being able to go out of school and straight into something that you're confident about, while you then start figuring out what you actually want to do.
Yeah, I think as well, and I think it's important to like find something that you want to do, that you enjoy doing, but then also sometimes you can't be too fussy and you're just going to take some experience. Like, don't do something that you hate, but if you just want to get some experience, like just suck it up and work at
Yeah.
Macca's or something, But all I can say as well is another thing that I learned is like, it can be so nerve-wracking going in for a job interview or to having minimal confidence, but whether it's like any kind of situation in your life, you can think, especially if you've got anxiety, you wonder, is this person going to like me? Is this job going to accept me? Am I right for this? Blah, blah,
Mm,
blah. And you're worrying all about you. But you also got to think, do you like that person? Do you want to
yeah.
work for that company? And I think that for me personally, put a bit of a switch in my brain because I was constantly worrying about if other people would like me or if I would be right for the job. But then I'm like,
Yeah.
hang on, am I going to like them?
Yeah.
And am
Yeah.
I going to want to work this job? And because I think that's like, you could be keen as to go and get a job and you can have all your qualifications, but everyone's like, okay, but what's experience do you have? And then
Yeah.
that can again like, brings your confidence down, and but
Yeah.
if you've got
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
experience, which
Yeah. I know what you mean
everyone
by
wants
that.
in a
Yeah.
job, because you could be like, yeah, I've got all my NCA, I got all excellence endorsements and
Yeah.
all this sort of stuff, and you go there
You're
and they're
like,
like, cool,
what?
you got any work experience,
Yeah.
and even just like, those star courses or like some sort of endorsement to say that you've actually had physical experience
Mm.
doing
Hands on.
hands-on experience, that's what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
But, and that can be huge, and it's not only going to help you get a job, it's going to help boost your confidence for feeling like you're
Mm.
actually capable of doing it, because you go from
Yeah.
being a kid,
Yeah.
being like a kid to like all this extra responsibility to
Yeah.
do this job. And if you're like, whether you're looking after kids or taking care of someone's child, you're, preparing someone's food, you're fixing
Yeah.
someone's car or something, like, that's a big
Yeah.
responsibility to just taking exams. So it can be quite overwhelming. But then also as well, like, yeah, so and then there's that daunting question of what do you like when everyone's about to leave school, it's like, oh, do you know what you're gonna
Yeah.
do? Is that pressure
Because a lot of
again? And
kids
it's
go to uni, eh? Like a lot of kids end up going to uni, but it's pretty crazy because I see so many uni kids end up doing stuff that they didn't even go to uni for, you know?
yeah,
So it's like kind of
absolutely.
like I can see how much anxiety and stuff would be built up, but it's sort of just, yeah. I guess we just got to look at making sure that the kids feel comfortable when they have to make the decisions on, those transitions on whether they want to go to uni and if they don't want to go to uni or if it's going to be a waste of time or like whether they go to uni and they don't end up doing something that they studied for, it's the fact that they've always got it there anyway, the qualifications and stuff like that. Like, don't
Absolutely.
ever think of it as like a waste of time because nothing's ever really a waste of time, is it? It's just building you into the character you are.
Yeah, and especially if you've learned something, then even if it's not what you want to do with your work, if you've learned something, then it's never a waste of time.
Mm,
And like, I feel like, you could go into a trade or you could go into a qualification, but, or you could also, while you're figuring things out, it's going to do no harm if you have a job for a year and then go do something different because you're just trying to figure out what's right for you. You're in a classroom every day, whatever, and then you just feel like you're being pushed out like on a ledge by yourself. You go from having that support constantly around people to like you're on your own now. And I think what's important is no matter like how overwhelmed and daunted you feel by it, you're not alone. Like
mm,
most people are going through the same thing and most people are
mm,
feeling the same. Even if they seem super excited, everyone's still going to have that fear and have that sense of being overwhelmed. And that even when you're an adult, like even in 10 years time, you could still have that feeling, it doesn't
mm.
mean, like, you know, at any age you can feel anxious, you can feel overwhelmed, or you can feel
Yeah, for
afraid about
sure.
getting a new job or going to
I
someplace
mean,
different. So
everyone still gets that feeling now, you know, like when you're going from a old job to a new job, you know, even at this age, at 24, 25, you know, I was still feeling when I moved back from up north and came back into Hibiscus Coast Marine Coatings. I still have had that anxious feeling of like, man, what's the crew going to be like? Are the boys going to be all good? You know, is the boss going to be all good? Wonder what the foremans and stuff like. So,
yeah,
you know, just understanding that that the anxiety and just the feelings you feel are just real natural feelings. You know, everyone feels them. Don't feel that
absolutely.
you're secluded or segregated and no one else is feeling these feelings because they probably are. You know, and a lot of us do. Even all the way up to, you know, I'd say old people get, you know, anxiety over just little things. It's just it's just I guess trying to help the youth understand that the feelings that they feel are natural and that they're not, I guess, something to be afraid of, or they're not something to run away from because, you know, it doesn't matter how old you
Absolutely.
are, you're going to feel those exact feelings throughout the whole course of your life.
And like you said, it's like it is completely natural. Like, you know, if you're
Mm,
nervous about something, you get anxiety, like that's just your body's way of reacting to things. And just because you feel like not confident or you feel anxious or you feel like it doesn't mean that's solely who you are. You know, beneath those feelings have just risen to the top, but like underneath you're still, you know, a bubbly person, you're still a kind
yeah,
person, you're still that outgoing person if you are, you know, you're still that
yeah,
there. Just when those feelings arise, they feel like they, you know, encompass everything and you,
mm,
all the other stuff disappears. But all those feelings are just feelings and all those
yeah,
thoughts are just thoughts. And you can just try and like bring yourself back and be like, okay, that's fine. You know, you put it in the back burner, like it's still there. You're
mm,
still nervous. You're still
yeah,
not completely confident, but you also think this is something that you really want. This is something that you feel like you can do. And this is something, you know, you want to have the money or you want to have this experience and you put that
mm,
first instead of like, you know, the negative feelings. And it's obviously
yeah,
not easier said than done most of the time, but I think knowing that you're like, you're not those thoughts, you're not those feelings,
mm,
and that everyone else gets like that, you know, like
yeah,
I've been to multiple interviews and I swear they never get any easier. Like, you know, like I had an interview the start of this year and I was still so nervous. And I like what you said is like, it's how those feelings don't go away. So you might have the exact same feeling of anxiousness that you felt in primary school over a
mm,
situation, and it's going to be the exact same feeling, but the only difference is you learn how to manage it and you learn
yeah,
how to work with it and stuff, you know. Whereas when you're younger, you don't kind of have that awareness and it's kind of overwhelming. But as you grow and you experience those feelings more and you get to know yourself more, you know, like I
mm,
know that sometimes I just need some fresh air. I need to go to the beach, or I need a cold shower, you know, or I need a cup of
yeah,
tea, or I have certain playlists on my phone that, like, if I'm in a certain mood, that just help, you know, like if I know all the lyrics to them, I can just jam that and it
yeah.
just takes me way
Just
out of
little,
that spot. But everyone, or you need something like just heavy D&B that you can just
yeah,
crash out to, you know. But like everyone, you just have to find literally like all of a sudden you're just stressed and then you're just jamming again. But
yeah,
I think everyone's got to find what suits them, you know, and
yeah,
everyone's going to know themselves well enough. And sometimes it's going to be hard and you're just going to like not feel like you need to do anything. But even if it's one little thing, or if it's like, you know, having literally a cup of tea or go stand outside and take some few deep breaths of fresh air, like as cheesy as it sounds, or like go for a
yeah,
drive in your car if you have a car, like it sounds sort of cheesy or whatever, but
yeah.
you've just got to, those are the little things that will literally help get you through.
Help you
So
out, yeah. It's good to find your coping mechanisms, like you've just said, because it just sort of takes you out of that moment for a second and brings you back to reality. And then in that reality, you're able to look at the situation as a whole. And, you know, you might be able to start looking at it from a different perspective. And, you know, you might be able to find a way to understand why you're feeling those feelings in that moment. And you might be able to do something about it, be able to interpret it, and just understand that that feeling's not going to last forever. You know, that feeling's just a feeling that you'll feel in the moment, and you'll probably feel that feeling again sometime down the track.
to add to what you're just saying is when you get in those times and you get real stuck in your head, whether it's anxiety or stress or depression or whatever, I think that's the time you feel most alone. But no
Mm,
matter how alone you feel, you're never alone. With,
mm,
like
mm.
you have people you can reach out to, and I find that's one of my biggest things is if I'm in that place, I suck at reaching out to people, something I need to work
Yeah.
on. But you can feel so alone when you're in that state, but you never are. You
Mm,
can have family, you can have friends, you can have, workmates or whoever, but you're never alone, whether you have someone to support you or like you're just never alone and feeling that way. So I
yeah.
think that's the biggest thing is you can sort of feel like you're blocked out from the whole rest of the world when sometimes you just need to say like, hey man, can we catch up and like go for a walk on the beach,
Mm,
or can we go get something to eat, or like I need a chat, like I just need a yarn or whatever. But and that's
yeah.
the hardest step sometimes is like reaching out, but a lot of people feel like that, and it's okay to feel like that as well, and it's
Yeah.
okay to be vulnerable. So that's, I think, like a big thing I've had to learn anyway. So
Mm,
yeah, I
mm.
think that's just super important.
Yeah. So as you sort of started, I guess, trying to figure out who you were and stumbling through life, different jobs and different career paths and stuff like that. Did you find yourself encountering, I guess, any like low moments or any moments where you felt really alone, where you couldn't reach out to someone, and how you sort of got through those moments and what you sort of did to help cope during that sort of moment of solitude?
Yeah, I've actually had quite a few times like that. Even, in the last few years, I've had times like that. And again, like I said, is I shocking at reaching out for help. Like when I get stuck in my head or I'm trying to deal with something mentally or emotionally, I sort of shut myself away and I enjoy my solitude. And I know that I need time to myself to recharge and whatnot. But I also had people reaching out to me to try and hang out or like to see if things were okay. And
Mm,
to be honest, I pushed them away, which isn't ideal either because people will only try so hard until, you're constantly pushing someone away. But then that's when I sort of felt like I was even more alone. But then I
mm,
had that extra guilt from feeling like these people were trying to help me, but I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know what I needed. I didn't
yeah.
know what, like I just didn't
Mm, mm.
know how to
Yeah. No,
ask. Like I
I
was like,
get what you mean because I'm definitely sort of the same. Like I always felt like I was somewhat like a big brother to the boys. Like to my boys that I've sort of grown up with. So it was kind of hard. Like when you sort of adopted the role of being like the person where they go to, it's kind of hard to like then go to them because you're kind of being the one that's sort of, I guess, you're the one that's sort of been there for them. So it's kind of hard to like reach back because you feel like they kind of rely on you for that sort of stuff. So for myself, I found
absolutely.
exactly the same as you that I needed to take a bit of time away and just had to like recharge and stuff. But during the process of recharging, the people were reaching out and I was doing exactly the same as you were. I was sort of like pushing them away, thinking that, I didn't need any help or didn't need anyone to talk to. And I did at the time. And now that I'm looking back at it, it sort of makes me think that I should have reached out a bit more because it would have probably helped me understand what I was going through from different perspectives. It's because someone always brings something different to the table. So, if you're one of those people that can't talk out, but you're trying to figure out how to decipher the situation you're going through, reaching out isn't just reaching out for help, it's reaching out so other people's perspectives can maybe help you understand the situation you're going
Absolutely. And I think that I didn't reach out or people were asking to hang out, even if it was just a general hangout. And I was like, no, because I just wasn't in a space to even, like, I wasn't
through.
myself. I wasn't, going to go there and be happy and social and stuff. And I didn't want to bring that
Yeah,
to the table either. But then I also didn't, I felt the stuff that I was going through or feeling was too heavy to even explain to somebody or try and talk to somebody, and I
yeah,
think that, but like you said, is I probably needed that. I needed to get out of my shell. I needed to get out of my head and just go and try and enjoy myself just to clear it a bit and or even to talk to somebody because I think you have all this stuff going on in your head and your body's
mm,
feeling all these things. You think it's easier just to shut yourself in, but actually
mm,
when you speak, it's like you've got a boiling pot, you know, and you've got the lid sitting on it, and like the bubbles are about to blow over, and it's just making
Yeah.
it worse. But you just need to like take the lid off, let the steam out, and just maybe heavy. And like, you know, some
Mm.
people are going to go through some really heavy stuff. Other people might not necessarily know what to say or what to do, but the fact that you're just getting it off your chest, I think, is super important. And
Yeah.
learning that as well, and to reach out, and it's okay to not be okay, like that's huge. And you, especially like we were saying, you don't have to be strong all the time, and it's
Mm.
okay to be vulnerable. Like, you know, you don't have to be a
Yeah.
rock all the time, and you don't have to be happy all the time, and like feeling like that all the time. Like everyone
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
through that, and it doesn't make you any less of a person to be going through that stage, you know, like,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's not going to last forever either, but yeah, you just need to reach out and find the things that suit you and suit your soul, that it's going to
Mm.
slowly bring you out of that little bubble that you're stuck in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't know what it is about guys. You know, like I'm not too sure why we can't open up, but I do have some sort of, I guess, some ideas on why men find it hard to probably speak up, and got a lot to do with sort of the stigma that society places on men as a whole. You know, like the men are meant to be the ones that provide for their families. You know, they're the ones who are meant to build the house. You know, pay for the food. They're the ones that are meant to buy the beds and put clothes on the kids' backs. And you know, there's so much of this, I guess, weight from society that's placed on men that, you know, a lot of the time we end up ultimately killing ourselves trying to provide and try to hold ourselves to the certain standard that society wants us to be at. What do you sort of think about,
Yeah.
you know, the whole stigma around the, I guess, the weight of society that they place on men?
I think that's huge as well. And like you said, it's almost like, you know, it's that pressure that even started from school to college, and, you know, that you've got to be tough, and you've got to be this, and you've got to be that. And it is that pressure. And I think that, like you said there, I like, you know, it's sort of like a bit of a Stone Age idea compared to where we're at now, even though it's still like a real thing, is that
Mm,
men have to be the strong one, they have to be the rock, they have to be support, like there to do all of these things, that it doesn't really allow them any opportunity to open up. Or I think a
yeah.
lot of, there's that stigma that if you do open up and say that you're not okay, or you get even a little bit emotional, that you're not
Mm,
much of a man. And it's, that's so wrong,
yeah.
you know, like it's,
Yeah.
that's just a story, I think, from so long ago, that is just sort of, I feel like it's still real, but I think it's like sort of beginning to fade in the background. But I think what's huge is that men have to have a safe space to open up. The same
Mm,
with women as well. But if you don't feel like people are going to take you seriously, or if you feel like you're going to just get made fun of behind your back, then you're not going to open up, you know, like whether
yeah.
it's, women have to have, whether it's to their family, to their boys, to their partner, to whatever, they have to have that space. And they may have grown up in that household where the man doesn't show emotion, the man doesn't do
Mm,
this, and so they've adopted that as well. So it's, I think, you know, for us as friends, as partners, as daughters, as whatever, as brothers as well, you know, like you have to create that safe space, and to say like, and I think also leading by example, you know, like if
yeah.
you know, you open up, it'll encourage them to open up as well, and you just know you've got
Mm,
that space. Or you say that, you know, it's a no judgment zone, because I think
yeah.
that's the biggest thing, is they don't want to be made to look or feel like they're not masculine enough because they have feelings. Because I feel like it's a stronger thing to do, to be able to open up and share how you're feeling, and share if
Shit,
something's
yeah.
bothering you or getting you
Hard
down, you
out.
know, like that's
Yeah.
massive. And if you do that, then, but yeah, having that safe space to do that, I think, is super
Mm.
important.
And that's sort of what I want to base this whole podcast and stuff around, is, you know, just creating that space where people can come and talk, and just like what you were saying. I like what you said about, you know, it's just the whole stigma of, you know, being a man, you know, being a tough man. And you know, like when I think back at it now, since wanting to sort of get into this line of work and stuff and doing a bit of research, you know, I look back at the likes of Mike Tyson. You know, he's got his own podcast out, and he's so open and vulnerable with his audience that, it's quite admirable. And even, the likes of Tyson Fury, he's the baddest motherfucker in the world right now.
Yeah,
And he openly talks about, his depression and, his drug abuse and just everything that sort of he went through and the times that he felt he was down and wanted to give up. And, these are some of the baddest men that we've ever seen come through the history of fighting, you know, and just leading by example and just being so vulnerable. Because myself, after sort of watching those videos and podcasts of them and short documentaries about them opening up, it's kind of made me like, well, if these motherfuckers can do it,
yeah,
well, who am like I should be able to do it, because these guys have millions of people that watch them every day, and there's people that are always drawn to their social medias and stuff because they've built such a big legacy. And then when someone like Mike or Tyson are just known for knocking people out, and then you go onto their podcast and it's Mike Tyson breaking down and just talking about stuff that happened to him as a kid and just showing that vulnerable side, it sort of made me realize, like, I could do this, and I could probably, start opening up a bit more and just creating like a safe space for people to talk about stuff that sort of happened through their lives and shit like that. Because, like you were saying, like that stigma of men having to be a man, a big
mm,
thing that I think a lot of men sort of struggle with. And like you're also saying, is that there'll be dudes with fathers as well who are tough men who probably haven't seen their fathers cry because their fathers taught them how to be a certain way. So it goes back to sort of breaking that generational curse of having to be a tough fellow all the time. Because you look at Mike and Tyson Fury, and they're the toughest dudes in the world right now, but they're open and honest and able to talk about their feelings, and just saying that they were depressed, and there's times where they thought about suicide and they wanted to drown their sorrows in drugs and cocaine and alcohol and all this stuff. I feel like we need to start breaking down that stigma slowly. And if it's, just doing
yeah,
stuff like this, creating podcasts for people to be able to just come on and just talk shit. If they want to talk shit, they can, get real deep if they want to talk deep. It's just getting, like you said earlier, everything just off your chest. Because once it gets to that point where the pot's boiling and, the lid pops, you don't want it to pop when you're around someone that doesn't deserve it to pop on, because that's going to make you
yeah,
feel even worse, because now you've offloaded all this hurt and all this pain onto someone that didn't deserve it, and now it's put them in a shit position, but it's also put you in an even worse position.
yeah. I think that's like what you were saying about like Tyson Fury and stuff as well. I actually saw that and I thought that was awesome. I even heard it on the radio
Mm,
again about, like you said, he's like the baddest motherfucker. He's out there like, pounding people's heads and shit. He's a tough
yeah,
dude and he's out there, gets his belt, and he's talking about mental health, and that he's struggled.
mm,
And I think it's just so important that we stop sugarcoating things and that we just be
yeah,
raw and real with each other, because, you know, most people have been through something, or they're still going through stuff, or they might have been through something, got better, and they're going through something again, like it's just, I
yeah,
think the more that we open up about that stuff, and like if the pot's boiling and if you don't do something stupid to yourself or to someone around you, and boil down
mm,
again every now and then by just talking about something or just releasing that
yeah,
tension. We're all, doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, we're all human, and we're all like, we're not machine to feeling these emotions and these feelings and getting
yeah,
to these states. And yeah, I think it's just, it's part of human life. There might be people that don't experience it or very little, but there's a lot of people, like a lot of people that suffer every day,
mm,
and I think, yeah, just the more that we, like, you're almost like creating a community for it, because in those feelings, when you're feeling like that, you do feel alone and you feel like
yeah,
there's only you that feels this way and you're the only one that has to deal with it. But if everyone can open up and be like, yeah, no, I've felt like that as well, or like, oh,
yeah,
like you just, that support group for each other, and then it just
mm.
makes things so much easier. You're talking about it more, you're not feeling so alone and so isolated, and you're feeling a bit more
It's just trying to
understood,
normalize
something
it,
that you
eh?
might feel. Yeah, absolutely. Like it shouldn't be shouldn't be such an issue that, like, you know, people feel like they can't talk about things, or they can't
Yeah.
be real with themselves or be real with the people around them. And again, it's just creating that safe space, and then also like an awareness of stuff as well. Like, you know, like, I don't know, it's like there's so many levels to it, like so much volume
Yeah.
to it, and I feel like there's so much that can be discussed, and like so many people that can open up and share their stories, and
Yeah.
even their ways of like their coping mechanisms, like you said, their strategies, certain things they'll say to themselves or they'll do to help, like, you know. And if you're just creating that group and all these ideas, then it's only going to make it more manageable for us as adults, for teenagers, for everyone around, you know, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just got to start somewhere, right? And I think this is what you're doing is an awesome thing. It's an awesome idea, and like just
Cheers.
real people talking about real problems, you know, like.
Yeah.
And I just think
Yeah. Yeah.
like a huge step in the right direction. Absolutely. Like it's
Yeah.
real cool.
Yeah. Well, like even what you just said just before, you know, like there's a point where, you know, there's a bit of real, you know, we have to be real with ourselves at some point, and you know, like admit to ourselves that, you know, we are depressed, or that we are going through anxiety stages, or that we are feeling certain feelings, because, you know, we can't expect walking around being real to everyone else when we're not being real to ourselves, you know. And that's where it starts, is you got to take that
100%.
first step into admitting to yourself that you need help, you know. So
Yep.
it's kind of one of those things where it has to start with you every single time, you know, because you got to be real to yourself in order to be real to everyone else. And you know, even now, like I'm sort of only unraveling and starting to be myself over these last processes of podcasts and stuff, because I did a collaboration with the boys from Good Vibes Only movement on Instagram. If anyone wants to jump over and have a look at some of their clips where they've got dudes on there openly talking about, you know, situations they're gone through, and you know, they've got girls on there. You know, they don't want it to. They just don't want people to feel like, you know, it's only guys. You know, just like I don't want people watching this to only feel like I'm aimed at guys, because at the end of the day, we all need help. You know, but at the same time, we all acknowledge that men need help a little bit more, because men are the ones that are suffering at the moment. But was there sort of anything that you sort of went through personally that sort of affected you anyway?
Um, yeah, I'd say there've probably been quite a few things that have been, I suppose, extremely hard situations to go through, really heavy things to deal with, in a sense of like, you know, I suppose traumatic, and like a huge, I don't know, in a whole load of different senses, but a massive like sense of grief, which I've found I've struggled with heaps. And that, again, a lot of stuff as well I still haven't really spoken about. It's still super personal to me, but I have been more open about how I've been feeling without having to explain the exact situation.
Yeah.
And I think it's just knowing the stages of like, I think I've struggled with even over the years is me thinking I'm better. Like I've done all of these things and all of a sudden I'm better, and like I don't feel like that anymore. And then like a big wave comes and comes
Yeah.
crashing down on me, and I'm just like, oh shit, how did I get back here again? Like I thought these feelings were gone. I thought I'd dealt with this. You know, like I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge, is that it's just mental health or grief or anything you're dealing with is just like a constant wave. You're going to have ups, you're going to have downs, you're going to have days, weeks, months where you feel amazing. You're going to have days, week, months where you are like, you're genuinely struggling. Like, oh, that's my personal experience anyway. Like
Yeah.
soaring down, you could not snowball down that hill fast enough, you know. And that's where I
Yeah.
was saying, like, I got to a point where I pushed people away from me who were trying to support me, trying to help me, and that also creates a loss in itself, because I'm pushing these people away trying to support me. So it's like another thing to deal with, you know. But and then sometimes I've had times where I'm going through life and I'm like, where did those 3 months just go? Like I feel like I've just been autopiloting, you know, because I'm so out
Yeah.
of touch with my
Yeah.
feelings. And I think everyone, like I personally have had a range of things happen or that I've had to deal with that I never would have thought I had to deal with, or like
Yeah.
that have been so heavy. And then obviously you have different emotions for different things and react to things
Mm.
differently. And if it's not one thing one day, it's another thing another day. And you just feel like you're being thrown around a tumble dry. You're just like, you can't catch your breath. You just feel like you don't know which way is up, you know? And
Yeah.
it's real hard, and especially when you're not a person to reach out usually, or you have pushed
Mm.
away the people that were trying to reach out to you. And then it can just be a really vicious cycle. And I
Yeah.
have found, like, again, is finding your ways through. Like, I find being outside, like, I love my job, like, I love being out with plants in the garden. That's good for my soul. That helps
Yeah.
me. Like you were saying earlier, you know, your brain's like this, and you just need to do
Mm.
things just to slow the waves down again, you know, like
Mm.
till they're
Mm.
manageable. So
Yeah.
I'll go for a swim in the open, have an ice cold shower, or just do the things that just helps like bring you back down to earth, I suppose. And then you can try and think, I'll try and think, okay, just like, no, no, everything's fine, like, you know, and then it's just a bad day, but then you've had a bad day or been in this loop for like 6 months now.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be
Yeah.
honest, like, that's what I think. It all starts with you, and you can have all the support in the world. You can have people throwing ideas at you. They can be throwing support at you. They can be like, you know, someone could hand you $1 million, but you have to be the one that like reaches out and takes it.
Yeah.
You have to be the
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
to make that step to be, you know, like, and I think that's like a bit of a blessing and a curse that it all ends with you. So
Mm.
it's kind of, when you're feeling like that, it's kind of shit that you're like, fuck, like no one can fix this but me. You know, you're
Yeah.
like, shit, I'm the one who has to sort this out for myself. But then I think it's also beautiful because you are all that you need to
Yeah.
do that. Like, you know, you don't need this, you don't need that, you don't need this
Mm.
person or that or anything else. It is yourself. And
Yeah.
I think that's, like I said, is, you know, it can feel overwhelming in a sense, but I think it's also beautiful because you have everything you need right here to help
Mm.
yourself
Mm.
get through the stuff that you're going through yourself out of these situations. So again, you're
Yeah.
never alone. You always have support around you, but you're the one who's got to take those steps. And I
Yeah. Yeah. For
think it's
sure.
also awesome for your confidence too and your strength, because you're like, okay, I'm the one who's got to dig myself out of this hole,
Yeah.
and you can do it. It is doable. And then I think once you do that, you have this newfound love for yourself
Mm.
because
Mm.
you got yourself out of somewhere that you thought was just like impossible to get out of, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
like like what you were saying about the whole self confidence stuff. It sort of gives you that sense of accomplishment. You know, making like the right decisions to get yourself on track again. Because like a lot of it is
Mhm.
what you're saying. Like it starts with you. You know, and once you admit to yourself that it's all on you and that it's only you that's going to take you out of this hole, when you start doing little things that start helping you get out of this hole, it starts giving you more confidence and it sort of empowers you a bit more because you're starting to learn a little bit more about yourself every time you accomplish something little.
Mhm.
I feel like a lot with life, like what you're saying with the highs and lows, is that that's what life is about. It's just you have to take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
There's going to be so much good in life, and there's going to be so much bad in life. And you think that there's stuff out there that we'd be able to do as communities and stuff to sort of help our brothers along and make it a bit more normal, a bit more easy for them to talk about what's going on inside their heads, what's going on inside their hearts, and just talking about life in general.
I think, like, you know, you can start anywhere in that sense, like, actually, but like, you know, you just have some food or something and it's just a safe space where maybe someone could start talking like first, and you know, it doesn't have to be like a tell 5 minutes about yourself circle, but it's a safe space to, like, if you want to talk about something you can, or even, you know, you just start off making friends and knowing that that's a safe space, and then you just keep
Mm,
going to like like meetings in a sense, but like more of like a catch up where it's like a safe space to talk. But I think you can start first is by talking to your mates, and you know, you'd be so surprised about how many of like your boys and whatever would support you and are supporting you. You know, like if they knew half of the stuff what was going on for you, they would be there in a heartbeat. They would be like, bro, let's talk, like what can I do, what, you know. And I think that what I think maybe like a big concern is the reaction, as if like,
Yeah.
you know, boys are supposed to be this tough, or if you're particularly the one who's usually people go to, and
Yeah.
you're like, look man, like I'm not all good, I need some help with something or whatever, and you're afraid of their reaction. So if everyone starts creating a safe space, and
Yeah.
you know, if you open up first, and like, you know, it's a judgment free zone, because I think that's something as well, as people are afraid of being judged or being
Yeah.
thought of as a lesser person. So I think
Yeah.
starting in your own friend groups or and stuff like that, and if you just have regular chats and just be like, all right boys, what's everyone checking in doing this week, like, you know, were you at a
Yeah.
1, are you at a 5, does anyone need help, or do you just need like, do you want support, do you want someone to listen, do you want someone to talk, or do you just want to catch up and get a feed, or like kick a ball around or something, you know, at the field, or like go fishing off the rocks or something, making it like a regular thing and a normal thing as well. Because I think, you know, if especially if people think they've been through something big and then they get better, like go through a good stage and then get back again, they feel like they can't open that space back up again. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
just kind of like regular chats, and
Yeah.
you know, and it doesn't have, you don't have to like, fuck, you could sit down and cry if you want to, but like it doesn't have to be a massive deal. You could just like catch up with the boys, like, and have these, like you do, like you said, when it's 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday or
Yeah.
whatever, you know, like have
Yeah.
those talks, but when you're sober, and just be like, I love you, bro, I got you on this. And I
Mm.
think you'd be so surprised on how many of your mates would actually feel the same, whether they're going through something the same, or whether they just support you and want to help you out. Like there's so much stuff that you could do, and then it doesn't have, like I said, it doesn't have to be awkward, it doesn't have to be like a big deal. You can just be like, all right boys, who wants to start, like, oh fuck, you know, you had a mean argument with your boss or something this week and he
Yeah.
racked you up, or like, you know, it doesn't have to be something heavy, or you could be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, nah, I'm fucking struggling, you know, but like, and you don't have to joke about it to the point where you're taking the piss, but if you just make it like, make light of the situation, you know, just to make it easier to talk about, because I
Yeah.
think serious conversations can be kind of daunting and overwhelming, but if it's just
Yeah.
like spoken about in a general manner, like you're just
Yeah.
having a
Yeah.
yarn, obviously topics aren't necessarily going to be funny,
Yeah.
but you know, like just
Yeah.
making it easy, like so it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like a chore, you know, like oh fuck, you'll never guess what, and you're just having a vent, like, you know, you're not being necessarily nasty, but
Yeah.
like you're just getting stuff off your chest, and then afterwards you're like, oh fuck, like, you know, I feel so much better, and it's nothing personal. And also just knowing, like, you know, you're not going to necessarily got it or anything, but
Yeah.
like you just need to get that stuff off your chest, and you'll just be like so surprised of all this tension that you're holding on to for no reason. And it could just be like
Yeah.
something little, you know, that you end up holding on to for ages, and like you get little things built up, and then all of a sudden you're just fucking wound up, you're irritated, you're angry, and it's like, fucking, you know, if you just vented a little bit, it
Yeah.
would have all been like,
And
you
like
know,
that's the thing. I
nuts.
like what you said about like it doesn't have to be straight into like the heavy shit, because a lot of the time like the heaviest shit can come from the most lightest conversations. You know, it could be someone talking
Yeah.
about, bro, last week when I kicked the ball, it fucking hurt my leg, and then you know, and one of the boys, it could just trigger, and they're like, fuck, bro, you know, my leg injury's been playing on my head or something. You know, they might be injured, or leg injury's been, you know, playing on my head, and I'm feeling down because, you know, I can't move around like I used to and stuff like that. So it's a good point that you bring up about, you know, just the little conversations, just starting off the talk is just
Yeah.
a good way and good direction into starting that process, because ultimately just making a start could just lead you into something that you didn't even know about, you know. All right, final question for the night. If you could say one thing positive or something encouraging or something motivational or just something you want to give out to the world and to the youth and to the people watching this at the moment, what advice would you give them?
Okay. My brain's got like a million things going right now. I just can't think like what's the right one to go with. But
Yeah.
I would say
Say multiple
I'm
if you
gonna go
want.
with like 3 things.
Yeah.
One thing that I love hearing is if your younger self saw you, like your child self, if they saw you, what would they think of you? They'd probably think you were real awesome. They probably thought you were a real cool person. They'd probably want to be like you when you grew up, like on your best days anyway, which I think is real cool. Like, like on your best, like on your sad days, you'd probably be like, oh, I don't know about her or him, but like,
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. I think that, like, and also on the outside looking in, like, is just remember when you're having your bad days of just how valuable you are, like it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what you do, the world wouldn't be the same without you. Like every single person has multiple gifts that they put out, like one thing you do or say could make or break someone's day, like, and that's valuable power that we have. And, you'll need it, and that's really important. And I think another thing is when you're going through some real tough times, I like to think of it like everyone's like, that's, and some days you could be like a cruise ship cutting through glass water, like not considering the Titanic, let's just leave that out. But like you're a ship, you're unstoppable, water's clear as you can get through like anything, or some days you're going to be in the roughest seas in a dinghy with a hole in it, like, and you're just going to have to do the best that you can. It's like, some days it's going to be so easy and you're going to be like, it's a breeze and you're just going to be like living in the moment, loving everything. And some days you're going to be like, fuck, is this it? You're holding on for dear life, you're trying to be your head, and like you just got to best you can, like, and your best is going to look different on different days. Sometimes your best you're going to be doing all this stuff, and sometimes your best is going to be that you made your bed this morning or that you even got out of bed. And I think so just being like forgiving yourself, like being easy on yourself, because if it was one of your mates, sister, your mother, your daughter, or your friend, and you were treating them or talking to them how you speak to yourself, you just wouldn't, I think we're our harshest critics, so just be like, be as good to yourself as you would be to anybody else. So, and just don't forget your value and how awesome you are, and don't compare yourself to anyone else because you've all got your own gifts to offer. And there's a saying that Homer Simpson says on one of the Simpson episodes, it's like the worst day of your life so far. And it's kind of like depressing, but it's kind of funny too. Like it lightens the situation for me. Like, like you said earlier, it's like, it's bad. It's probably going to get worse. So like, it's good. But it's, you're going to have real good days too. So I think, but just like, and keep your mind happy, like choose the thoughts that you put in your head for the day and train your mind to be your friend, because that's like what'll help you get through life and all your situations and everything. So
I like the motivation and stuff like that. So we'll wrap it up there. But I just want to say thank you for that, and thank you for everything you've said tonight. And hopefully someone takes something good away from this. So
Turn on the radio.